All right. Welcome everybody to our first panel of the day. This is the queer non-men in the DIY scene in New Haven panel. We're going to talk about DIY specifically in New Haven, specifically for queer people, because the DIY scene is usually saturated with like cis het men, and it's important for people to know that, queer people specifically, that there are other options for you to do it yourself and for you to go to events where there are other people, queer people, doing it themselves. So again, I'm Suyane. I use she, they pronouns. Thank you everybody online and here. I'm so happy to see all of y'all's beautiful faces. Thank you guys for joining us for our first panel. I'm super excited about this one. So for folks who don't know like what DIY is, it just stands for do it yourself. And literally anything can be DIY. Like if you've ever put IKEA furniture together, you did it yourself. Like if you ever, this is a little bigger, but like organized a vending event, like you did it yourself. And it's just like basically an empowering scene to be into because you can do anything yourself. If you see a problem, you can fix it by doing something about it. So today we have 3 of New Haven's beautiful DIYers with us today. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. We'll go down the line. If you want to tell me your name, your pronouns, and what you guys do. You want to start us off, Marianna?
Yeah. So I'm Marianna. I use they, them pronouns. I am an organizer for East Rock House. We organize creative mixers, open mics, and art shows and like vendor fests for queer and trans visual artists, musicians, and vendors in New Haven.
Sweet. My name is Ashley. I use she, her pronouns. I run Qommunity. We're basically trying to cultivate creative engagement for people of all levels, on all levels, for all people, but especially for queer people, especially for brown and Black queer people. But we do a lot of our own things ourselves, handmade merch and healing projects, and that's what Qommunity does.
Hello, my name is Zoe Jensen. I use she, they pronouns. I'm one of the editors of Connectic magazine, which is a bi-monthly zine that only features Connecticut artists, writers, work, and we only come out in print, but we also do events, and we're a femme queer-led zine.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm super excited. Yeah. The work you guys do is very important, and I'm a personal fan of all of your work. Okay, so for our first question, we're just going to kind of dive right into it. And this is like a question for anybody. You can all answer, one of you can answer, whatever y'all are feeling. But the first question is, why did you guys get involved in DIY and when?
For me, I got involved, I started doing things myself probably 2019, 2020. I think as soon as like COVID hit, a lot of access was just revoked from people to do whatever they wanted. And I think at that time I was really looking for community. And I was looking for people who looked like me, people who liked to do art things, people who were queer, and I couldn't find them. So I was like, I need to create this space then, like myself, because nobody else is doing it right now, or at least at that time. And now it's kind of amazing to see like people that I met back then in 2020 who are like blossoming now and like doing their own community things. And now we have this like larger community that we get to tap into, which is so great. But it's like at the time that wasn't there, and just being able to reach out to people and like sow seeds into people and to see like what our community has come to be now. It's like, oh my God, if I never put myself out there, if I never started taking pictures, if I never started doing designs, or if I never started just meeting other people, I wouldn't even be here. But then I don't even know if our community would be as tight as it is right now. So I think that for me, it's definitely started in 2020, but just to watch it grow from what it's been has been like so awesome.
I think I started getting involved. I think I've always sort of gravitated toward DIY culture scenes since I was really young. Like both my parents are like, my dad is a musician, and I've always like grown up like going to shows with him and like sleeping on the couch at the bar, like 11 years old. And I've always just sort of been enamored by people putting together spaces that are welcoming and interesting. And I think for Connecticut specifically, I think there were always, I don't know, I think as you said, like a lot of, there are DIY spaces that are cishet run, and definitely places that aren't comfortable for like queer people to go to. And it's definitely upsetting when you know, you want to enjoy art and see what's going on, and then you're like, oh wait, this is not a welcoming space. And I think Connecticut was created truly just to like highlight the cool artists in the area and put something together that truly put like everyone's, I don't know, perspectives together. But I'd say like I also DJ, so I've always just been very interested in like DIY spaces, getting involved, and things that are just community run are just so beautiful to me. Like things that are like, oh, this only exists because people are interested in fueling this. I think it's just so powerful and cool.
Yeah. I think for me, it's kind of like a patchwork of different things. So, like thinking about DIY and thinking about like you defining DIY as like, what do you do when you have a problem? You can like find a way to solve it. I feel like I've been doing that for a very long time because that's what you do when you have a lot of problems and you don't have a lot of resources, is you find ways to solve it and make it work. In terms of like my first experience doing that, I think it was probably honestly through my church. Like we would organize like an annual like Greek festival, which like isn't the ideal scene that you always want to talk about at like a pride center.
No.
But we would organize this really big community festival, and it was the epitome of like doing it yourself, of like doing it with minimal resources, like community help, volunteering, and everyone just like pitching in to get it done. So I think that's where I kind of learn to have that type of like work ethic and like approach to like community-led events. And then in terms of East Rock House, Ashley, myself, Luke, and Julian started working on it because we were all kind of coming to the scene for different reasons. So for me personally, like I moved to Connecticut maybe like 3.5, almost 4 years ago. And I just like wanted to know where to find the lesbians and like where to find the dykes and where everyone was like hanging out, because there were a lot of like spaces that centered like gay men, and it was kind of hard to find those spaces for me, especially moving from Northampton, Massachusetts, which has the most lesbians per capita in the US. So I got to Connecticut and was like, where are the dykes? Where do they hang out? How do we become friends? And Luke had come here from Chicago and was very much into like the DIY music scene and was trying to find where to play shows. And we kind of threw it together by hosting our first open mic and just having a really good response that we weren't anticipating, but I think was just representative of like how many other people were looking for that space too for their own reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's funny actually that you don't want to bring religion up into this, like for various reasons. Like I know religion can be a different thing for different people, but it's just, I think religion is like a form of community. Like people are there because like that's their people. Like we all, you know, collectively share the space, collectively share these values. Like we want to be better people, you know? And I honestly think that's like what, like you all touched on this, that's like what DIY is. Like you want a community, like you can't find your community, so you just gotta like kick it up and go ahead and do it, and then you'll find the community, you know? Yeah, those are all great. Thank you guys for sharing. Okay, so my second question, okay, this is a pretty good question. I think, so in terms of like differences, how do you guys think like DIY differs from mainstream like gigs in terms of like what I was just talking about, community, right?
Great question.
Yeah.
I think, at least for East Our House, like some of the things that I'm thinking about are that we really emphasize like paying performers directly and paying artists directly, financially investing in like queer businesses and vendors, and like putting the money like back into the community as much as we can, not really taking a lot of like overhead or like profit from it. And I think just like trying to generate based on like what people are looking for and like what community needs are there would be like the first things that come to mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's so funny, especially with Connectic. A lot of when we start, because obviously we're like a physical magazine. It's like 52 pages, like color, like. I tried to print it on my printer for the first issue. It ran out of ink like halfway through, so we use a printer.
Your paper is very
Thank you, Best Printing USA in Norwalk. Those are the guys. But like a lot of people would ask like, oh, so how did you get the money for this? And like, how did you like? What's your investor? Who's your editor? Like, who's your publisher? And it's like, oh, no. Like, this is like the only reason we're able to send it to print, the only reason why we're able to now like provide free copies to contributors, like have all of this stuff is purely because of like the community investment. Like, we don't take any of our personal, like, this is a community powered scene, 100%. And I think that is the big difference between mainstream culture is that like especially with like a lot of mainstream sort of like venues or magazines or anything, it's like, okay, so you have like a super rich person behind the scene who can sort of like put their little touch on it or like have a little, I don't know, a bigger influence and have it not be actually representative of the community. But I think the fact that it's like Mar, Ayana, and I like fully being able to just publish like vaginas and just not really giving a crap what anyone else says, like I think really shows the power of like DIY versus like mainstream. Yeah.
I love that. I think to both of their points, I think what's different about being DIY versus being mainstream is like when you're DIY and you're like so community based, you get people who are really passionate about what you're doing. So it's like you get people who are really riding for you, people who are really standing like the things that you're doing, as opposed to, you know, someone who might come across it later if it's bigger and it's just kind of like they don't have as much interaction with it, as much engagement with it, as much investment in it. Like not only financially, but like personal investment. Like I want to see this win, or I want to see this kind of get off the ground. And I think for community particularly, it's been just awesome to see the people who are genuinely invested in community, because community, I don't make money. I do not make money.
Yeah.
That's
I
I
literally-
making money in DIY, like that's capitalist.
Yeah,
like
right.
you're not in DIY.
Yeah, so it's like we make money, right? We sell t-shirts, we sell merch, but then we literally give it away, like via contests and all these different things, or donating to different orgs and things like that. So I think just being able to tap into people's personal investment into the work that we're doing has been, I don't know, that's what's rewarding for me.
Yeah. I love that you said that actually, because Indigo was supposed to be here, and they were going to talk about their community-funded festival, Punq Noir. And that just goes to show that, like, I mean, Indigo is taking on like a really big project. Like this festival is going to be the fucking shit. And it just comes to show that like the people want this kind of stuff, you know, like the community wants like this big festival where we celebrate like queer people of color, like punks, like DIY culture, and we're willing. And most queers are like working class. Like we work minimum wage jobs. We don't have that much money, but because we're so invested in our own community, and like we want to share the love, and like we want to, you know, share the space. We're like willing to, you know, donate $20 a paycheck, like go to I think Indigo had like a fundraiser for like an open mic fundraiser, and they raised like hundreds of dollars for the Punq Noir Festival. Like, you just got to care about the people, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. I think like, yeah, I mean like with Connectic, again, like I legitimately was going to print it on my color printer, and then Marianna and I were like, oh no, because and this was fully supposed to just be a zine for like, I went to Yukon stores and I was like, okay, like this is just going to be like a thing that I print for a couple of my friends and like whatever, continue on with my bakery job. But then it just like, people gravitated toward it and supported it, and that was like so powerful for us because we were like, oh my gosh, and we were able to like afford to buy like the 75 physical copies for the first issue, which is absolutely mind-boggling because people are like, oh, I want this.
Yeah. Yeah, your zine exploded.
It's really, I don't even know how. Like, yeah, it's like community support.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Yeah.
you're featuring like queer artists from Connecticut, and people want to see a zine on queer artists from Connecticut.
Yeah.
Like, you gave people what they wanted, basically.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's like what everyone here does too. It's just like fully, we exist only because like even just one person who we didn't know was like, oh, I want this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, East Rock House that Ashley and Marianna like organized was one of, because I'm also new to New Haven, and I came from Brooklyn, where it's like queers are everywhere, and there's like a gay thing happening like on a Tuesday night, you know. And East Rock House was one of the first places that I went. I was like, this is what I'm fucking talking about. Like, we're kind of in suburbia compared to the city, right? And hosting like a show in a backyard, and there are vendors, and there are like tons of people came out. It was so fast. It was such a successful night, and now you guys, I mentioned that you're outgrowing East Rock House. Now you guys are growing out East Rock House. I didn't know if it was on the down
No,
low.
you're good.
You guys are outgrowing it, which is like a beautiful fucking thing to see, like this tiny little space grow into like something bigger than y'all planned for.
Yeah. I think that's the thing too about like being in the DIY scene versus mainstream is that like the resources shift because we all just said that we're not making money, right? Like we acknowledge. So the resources shift, but then like because of the community investment and the personal investment, like we've had people come to East Rock House and like just start doing like photography for us, or like offer to make flyers for us, or like show up with like different skills and different ways to support, and like we all cross promote and collaborate and support each other, and like we all know each other like even from before this panel.
Right.
So I feel like that's the cool thing is like you don't get kind of like the big financial resources of like being in the mainstream, but you get all the personal investment and like community support and community buy-in, and that like makes it worthwhile and also makes it like functional to organize.
Yeah, absolutely, and sustainable, I say. Yeah. All right, let's mosey on down to my fourth question. Oh, I know Zoe mentioned this a little bit about your father being a musician, so he was always involved in DIY. But I want to know, like, where you guys heard this concept of DIY. Like, was it in like a minority-led space? Did you just like decide to do it and not even know that you were doing DIY?
Oh no. So I'm from New Haven, and growing up, it was like my dad moved to Florida. My mom, it was me, my mom, and my sister. And my mom, like, did everything by herself. Like, she just did everything by herself. We got new furniture, she built it. She mowed the grass, I took out the trash. Like, anything that was, like, traditionally for, like, a dude or anything like that, we did ourselves. Like, if she had to fix something, she's like, Ashley, we need to watch a YouTube video and figure this out. Like, we, like, replaced, like, water lines for our refrigerator. Like, we just did everything. So my DIY-ness definitely came from that woman, Asia Mirabal. Shout out to her. But she just was like, I'm gonna figure this out. Like, we have the resources to figure it out because we have the internet, and like we're gonna do it ourselves. So that's kind of where my DIY-ness came from, just from being like, oh no, like this lady, she figured out everything. she figured it out. So if she can figure it out, you can do something.
Oh
You know, maybe you're not like get everything, but you can do something. So I think it definitely came from her.
I like completely agree. Like my mom started doing construction like as a kid fully because like she was like, okay, like we need to build this, like I'm gonna learn how to do construction. And she was like building tables for people and like doing all this construction work. And I really do think it's like a very similar thing where it's like, oh, see, like growing up around someone who fully does DIY. And also my mom, like she paints for people and she has like an underground like artist thing where she like paints dogs for families. but I mean like I feel like yeah, just learning from definitely parents just being like, okay, let's make it work. So powerful.
Yeah. I feel like I always think about it in like a very like class-based sense too. Because like both of my parents grew up super low income. My dad came to the US when he was 26. They were both first gen and the first in their family to go to college and then to also go to grad school. So like in terms of like our like assets or means, like anything that we have, like we essentially like did ourselves because we were doing with like very little resources under the constraints of the resources that we like did have. So in terms of like building things around the house, like fixing things, like not wanting or not being able to like pay for things to be like fixed professionally or properly, but able to fix it in a way that was like functional for us. I feel like that was like my first kind of experience, like learning what it means to do it yourself, and then also like organizing like great festivals and things like that, which is like a huge endeavor to kind of take on for like the people in the community that are investing time into planning it. I don't think I really like knew what the DIY scene was until I was in college and I was like working in a women's history archive and like I would go through the stacks and kind of just like flip through things when it was really quiet, and I would see all of these like queer zines and I'd like find all these like documents about like protests and stuff like that from the 90s. So I think I like to some extent grew up with the same like mentality of like if it's broken we're gonna find a way to fix it because that's what we gotta do. But didn't really start learning about like what the actual DIY scene was until I was in college and I was working in the archives.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of you guys. I feel like we talked a little bit about this in our Lavender Lip Book Club when we went to Stonebridge Blues, but oh man, where was I going with that? Oh yeah. The DIY scene, I feel like, is never really labeled until someone is like, oh, that's a scene. Because anything can be a scene, you know, like crocheting scene, like knitting scene, like anything can be a scene. And I feel like a lot of, especially like poor and working class people, do everything themselves because we don't have the resources. Like, I agree with you. Like, I'm an immigrant. Like, I did everything for my parents because they didn't speak English very well, you know? So I was like filling out like my permission slips, like doing taxes at like 12 years old. You just kind of got to do it yourself. And the internet as well, like the internet has revolutionized like DIY culture because before you could buy a book, right? You could buy like what is that, like Dummies book?
Yeah.
And you could do anything with the like little Dummies book, but like now you have YouTube. If you need to like fix your car tire, YouTube that shit. Like literally anything, everything.
Sublimate a shirt.
YouTube. Make sure
Build a stage for Easter Egg House.
What was that?
Build a stage for Easter Egg
You
House.
built that stage?
Yeah.
You guys built that stage?
Yeah.
Luke was trying to handsaw it for the longest time because we didn't have like the official equipment. So yeah.
That is
DIY.
insane.
Yep.
I thought that stage somehow just like magically appeared. That's a real stage.
I think we maybe loosely reappropriated some wooden crates
Mhm.
and then found some like carpet on the side of the road. We were like sawing into things and like drilling and hammering it.
That
Spray
is-
painting.
Yeah, that is literally what DIY is.
Yeah, the stage.
Yep. Okay. This is actually my last question, but I'd love to like see where this is my last question that I wrote down. But do you guys have any upcoming shows or events that y'all want to plug so that we can tell people that you can come to these queer, cool ass DIY places?
Well,
Connecticut number 6 is out on Thursday.
How do you order? Where do you order?
Slide into the DMs, Connecticut, the U is an underscore on Instagram. And on Thursday, we're also going up to Yukon, going back to stores, and we're doing a little like zine workshop up there, which I'm just so pumped about, and just talking to the little kiddos.
The college kiddos.
The college kiddos. Yes, not, yeah.
Things I haven't learned yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. But yeah, that's coming up. I'm like picking up the zines later today, which I'm just like, so pumped. But yeah, slide in the DMs. That's how to do it. Or catch us at one of the many events that you guys throw. Or just there's so many, like, we're usually, I don't know, posting about vending things and events that are coming up and things like that. So definitely follow us on Instagram and keep in the loop.
East Rock House, May 7th, we're doing a spring visual art show. So we're going to have a performance by Rogue Godwin. We have 7 different visual artists. It's going to be at Studio I in New Haven, which is also a queer-owned studio. Going to be really cool, 5 to 8, May 7th. I think it'll be really exciting since it's the first event that we've had in a while. And I think it'll be nice to like see the community show up.
Mm-hmm. That's a great place.
Yeah. East Rock House.
Ashley is going to be in the show.
So, yeah, and isn't Studio I right around the corner from
Yeah.
here? Yeah, right downtown.
Yes, 315 Peck Street.
Yep. We know Lex were working on a flyer last night doing it ourselves.
Nice.
Community. Follow us on Instagram, Community with a Q. Right now we're wrapping up our Revive Poetry Contest. It actually just ended. We're going to be doing reviewing submissions this week and picking a winner for next Friday. And I have this little thing that I'm trying to cook up. It's called Mend. It's a healing project that I'm trying to, make happen. What I want it to be is a wellness festival. And I basically want to engage, the creative community in basically getting us to talk about our mental health, our mental wellness, and how community plays into that. So we're cooking it up. We're going to do some things. We're going to raise some money soon. So just keep your eyes on the lookout for that.
I love
Mend, mind your mental. That's the tagline. But yeah.
So we also sell merch. Like,
Yeah, you sell merch.
Oh yeah, and I sell merch. So you can go to community.us. Again, that's community with a Q. I'm going to be dropping something new soonish. We'll see how soon, but it's coming.
Are you repping your merch right now?
Yes,
too?
it's the Pussy Power
Pussy
shirt
Power shirt.
on community.us. We
Yeah.
have a bunch of things. We have a couple of things left over from Punq Noir's last open mic fundraiser. But yeah, we're hoping to drop some new things soon in time for the summer. And we're going to be vending at a lot of things. Hopefully we'll be vending at Punq Noir. There's going to be a bunch of other things that we're supposed to be looking at too. So we're going to be around this summer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And we will all be there to support
Oh,
our
yeah.
organizations. Awesome. And actually, I'll go ahead and just plug Indigaux's Punq Noir
Yeah.
Festival, since they're not here with us today, unfortunately. Punq Noir is going to be like an underground festival for people of color, queer people, all of us. It's happening June 27th.
I want to say the
Juneteenth.
19th.
Yeah.
I want to say the 19th.
Well, y'all could follow them on Instagram at Punq Noir Festival, right?
Yep,
I should have
Punqnoir.festival.
Punq Noir Festival.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you guys can contribute some money to the fundraiser. It's all going towards the performers and just building this up. They want to pay everybody who, is wrapped up in the festival. So be sure to check them out on Instagram.
Click there.
And yeah, just show up for that because that's going to be a beautiful, beautiful festival in New Haven, right? If I'm not mistaken, in New Haven. I didn't type all this out, but yeah, that's going to be Punq Noir.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I think. Do you guys have anything else to plug in before
Our 1-year anniversary is in July.
Oh, that's
yeah,
so
which is
cute.
absolutely nuts. So we're gonna
You
do.
should do a thing.
Oh, we're doing a thing. We're gonna have like a big birthday party. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out. We're gonna like get a cake. Like we're gonna. The whole issue's gonna be like yearbook themed. So we're gonna like yeah. So we're gonna like interview
I'm
people.
dying.
Oh no, yeah, we're gonna fully take like yearbook shots, like. So yeah, definitely. This coming issue is like, but like I can't wait to just celebrate a year of this zine, like absolutely wild.
How many issues do you guys have out?
That we have, so this coming one is the 6th issue, and then the 7th one will be in July.
That's beautiful. In a year, like that's amazing.
Yeah.
And for the folks here, we have some examples of zines, and there's a Connectic zine over there on the table if y'all want to take a look at it. Because y'all do. I love all your zines.
Yeah, it's wild. It's gonna be a year. It's just wild.
Yeah.
It's really.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to be a part.
Please,
Okay.
please, anyone and everyone. Like again, we're a community-powered zine, 100%. Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. This is a lovely conversation. I hope that everybody here and everybody at home learned a little bit more about the queer DIY scene in New Haven. Hopefully y'all could go to either East Rock House's events, Connecticut's events, support community, and tell your friends. And I hope that these beautiful people inspired you to do it yourself. Like you have a problem, you need more community, organize an event. It's literally free. Sometimes you need a permit if you're doing it outside. Kind of. You'll figure it out. You'll do it yourself.
We'll figure it out.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And thank you all beautiful people and everybody at home for joining us for our first panel of the day. This was beautiful.